Hi, welcome to the Gear Garage. My name is Zach, and this is my show about whitewater stuff. And today I want to talk about an intricacy of reading water, which is the difference between reading just a hole and a pour-over hole. But before I do, I just want to mention that reading water is hard. And people ask me all the time, like, how do I read water? Or teach me how to read water. And it's a hard thing to teach. We can do a class in river hydraulics, talk about what forms holes and waves and rocks and pillows and all that stuff. But how to actually look downstream and see things and recognize what's behind them, it's really hard to teach. And so I generally say get some practice and you'll learn. And we can teach some general things, and a lot of times a feature is a combination of two or a hybrid of two, which makes things even more complicated. But this is a very intricate one that I really like, and it's something you can start looking for downstream as you boat more. And it's looking for pour-over holes. And what pour-over holes are these, like, the water's just above like an underground rock or whatever, and so when you float over the boat, it's a pretty steep drop off. The boat goes almost vertical sometimes, straight down, which doesn't always end well. And this hole at the bottom is usually sort of like, it's pretty sticky. These are stickier holes than a regular hole. So we try to avoid pour over holes. We also call them ledge holes, again, because you go over pretty steep, and this hole generally tends to be sticky. A normal hole, you can see the water levels higher above the rock, and what happens is there's more of a ramp down. There's still a hole down there, but it typically isn't as sticky, and you can flush through nicer. And so when we're running class 2 and 3, we try to avoid both of these, but in more difficult water, we have to start choosing which hole to go through, right? And so sometimes there's only holes to go through, and you have to decide where is it going to flush and where is it not going to flush or be a super steep drop off. And so when you're reading the water, things to look for is like a little bump in the surface. And a little bump in the surface is a sign there's a rock just underwater, and that's a pour over. So if you see just like a horizon line, or the hole is pretty uniform across, that means it's generally just a normal hole. Doesn't mean you automatically go through it, but you have a better chance of going through a hole where it's pretty uniform and there's a straight line than there being some sort of bump. So the whole point of this is to say, when you're reading water, we generally try to avoid these bumps like this in the water. And I want to share a few examples with you here, a video on rivers that you can use to kind of see what I'm talking about. On this first example, we're on the Wind River, and you can see right there where that square is. That's an example of a little bit of a bump. That's where there's going to be a pour over on the back end, and you can't see it when we go by. Now I'm looking downstream, and I see a pretty flat horizon line in front of me right now, so everything looks pretty good. But as I get closer, I start to notice a couple of bumps, and there's a couple of bumps in there. It's kind of hard to see in this video, but they're there, which tell me there's some kind of pour over holes there, and I'm going to move left here to avoid that mess. And as I do, I see another one right there, so I'm going to drive further left to miss that one as well. Here's another good example. And in front of me, there's a hole, and on the left side, there's a little bit of a hump you can see there. And if you look on the right, it's really flat. And so again, the flat is where it generally is a pretty moderate hole. There's still a hole there. You can still go in there and surf and flip, but it's not as bad as that left side. So I go down the right side and then take the left backwash to get over. This is Kramer Rapid on the Salmon River. And if you look on the left, there's a big hump there, and that's a pour over hole. But right in front of where he's going, it's pretty flat, and you can see again there's still a big hole, but it ramps down and he's able to power through it. That left side hole has flipped many a boat. Here we are with some kayakers, and a kayaker is going to boof this rock, and so it's common for kayaks to boof pour over holes because they can. It's an advantage to kayaks, whereas catboats it wouldn't go as well. So here the catboat is going to go left of that pour over, where the kayak has the ability to power over the top with what's called a boof stroke. If you look downstream, again, there's another hole here. It's pretty flat. There's a little bit of a bump, but it's pretty flat. And although he could go through that hole, there's a chance of flipping, and so the raft is just going to go around it. Finally, this is a gearboat on the Illinois River at pretty low water. And early on, I'm looking downstream, I'm scanning ahead, and I see a little hump there, which tells me there's probably a pour over. And if I look to the left of there, it looks pretty flat, or even like upside down a little bit, like upside down humps, which is typically fine. So I'm not going to go over the pour over. I'm going to go over this like kind of flattish area. You can see it's kind of a smooth ramp down. And once I'm past there, again, scanning downstream, And what I see here is in the middle another hump and kind of flat areas to the right and the left. And so I'm going to go either right or left. I'm going to go left today, but I've gone right in the past, and it turns out right is the better decision, although this works just fine. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. As always, like, subscribe, do all the things. And if you have things to add, as always, add them. Even if you have tips about other reading water techniques, that would be great, super helpful. As always, I appreciate you watching this, and yeah, see you next time. Thanks.